You will never change your life until you change your energy. And you will never change your energy until you learn to calm your mind. Let that sink in. We live in a world addicted to noise, external chaos, mental chatter, emotional turbulence. The world has taught us to live in reaction. Every day we wake up and fire off the same thoughts, feel the same emotions, and perform the same habits. We run the same programs, and then we wonder why hasn't my life changed? Here's the truth. Your reality reflects your state of being. If your mind is overwhelmed, your life will mirror that storm. But if you want to create something new, something extraordinary, you must begin with calm. Now this may sound simple, but don't confuse calmness with passivity. Calmness is strength. It is the birthplace of awareness, and awareness is the first step to transformation. Think about it. When your mind is chaotic, it pulls you into survival. In survival, the brain narrows its focus. You become obsessed with problems, with threats, with the need to control everything. You're surviving, but when the mind is calm, when you sit in stillness, breathe deeply and quiet, the noise, something incredible begins to happen. Your brain shifts from chaos to coherence. Your heart moves from resistance to rhythm. Your body leaves the past and steps into the present. And this right here is where transformation begins. Because in the present moment, you're no longer your past. You're no longer the memories, the wounds, the fear. You become pure potential. And this is the moment where the magic happens. Because when your inner world changes, your outer world responds. You don't manifest a new life by thinking the same thoughts over and over again. You don't step into your power by letting anxiety and fear dictate your decisions. You do it by taking a breath, becoming still, and observing the self without judgment. This is not philosophy. This is biology. Your brain waves shift. Your heart rate slows. Your nervous system resets. And as your body calms, your consciousness expands. And from that space of expansion, new thoughts rise. Thoughts not rooted in fear, but in vision. Thoughts not shaped by the past, but inspired by the future. This is where true creation begins. So I ask you, when was the last time you sat in silence and simply observed your thoughts? When was the last time you disconnected from the world and reconnected with yourself? Because that moment, that still sacred moment, holds more power than 1,000 actions rooted in stress. You want to change your life? Don't chase the world. Calm your mind. Focus your energy. And watch how your entire life begins to shift. You were never meant to live in survival. You were born to create, and creation requires clarity. Clarity comes from calmness. Calmness begins when you choose to step away from the noise and into your true self. Asterisk, the mind in survival cannot create, it can only react. This is the truth we must come to understand if we ever want to break free from the endless loop of repetition in our lives. When we live in a state of survival, our attention is constantly fixated on the external world, and we're scanning our environment for danger, waiting for the next problem to solve, the next crisis to fix, the next piece of bad news to react to. Our senses become heightened, our body gets tense, our breath shallow, and our mind starts looping the same fearful thoughts over and over again. We wake up feeling the residue of yesterday, the same anxiety, the same dread, the same limited sense of self. And we move into our day acting from that same familiar past, expecting something different to happen, but nothing different happens, because the body is already conditioned into a state of survival. And in that state, creativity is impossible. Expansion is impossible. New thoughts, new possibilities, new outcomes, they can't reach you. Not because they're not available, but because you are not available to them. You are too busy managing the stress of the moment to step into the potential of the future. When you're in survival, the brain moves into high beta waves. This is a very fast and chaotic frequency. Your attention becomes fragmented. You become obsessive, analytical. You start trying to control everything. The more you try to control, the more out of control you feel. That's because you're not in a creative state, you're in a defensive one. And defense does not lead to transformation. It only reinforces the identity you've been rehearsing for years. The identity that says, I am what I've been through. I am what's happened to me. I am the circumstances of my life. But here's where everything begins to change. When you understand that you can interrupt the pattern, when you realize that your thoughts are not facts, they're just familiar you. Start to take your power back. You begin to sense that there is more to you than just the programming you've been running. And that's where calmness becomes your entry point into creation. Calmness is the antidote to survival. When you begin to calm your brain and body, when you take the time to slow your breath, to become present, to feel into your heart, you begin to shift from high beta into alpha. And in that alpha state, your awareness opens. You are no longer hyper-focused on the outside world. You begin to turn inward. And the moment you do, you enter the space of possibility. That space is where creation lives. Not in the fight-or-flight response, not in the conditioned thoughts of the past, but in the stillness where thought and emotion begin to align with vision and intention. And when that happens, when the heart and brain come into coherent synergy, moves, you begin to feel elevated. You begin to sense something bigger than yourself moving through you. It's not intellectually, but somatically. You feel it in your chest, your gut. In the tears that rise for no logical reason, because you're finally letting go of the old survival self. And what's left is who you really are, a creator, a visionary, being of infinite potential. So many people are trying to create a new future while holding on to the emotional residue of the past. They're trying to imagine abundance while feeling lack, trying to dream of love while holding resentment, trying to visualize freedom while being trapped in fear. It doesn't work because your body is your unconscious mind. And if your body is still living in survival, no matter what you think with your conscious mind, your frequency doesn't change. The signal you send out into the field is still one of limitation. The field responds not to your wishes, but to your energy. So, the first step is not effort. It's not striving. It's not trying harder. The first step is calm. It's stillness. It's the decision to stop running, to stop reacting, and to simply become aware of the present moment. Because when you are fully in the now, you are no longer in the past. And when you're no longer in the past, you're no longer predictable. You become unknown. And the unknown is where creation begins. The truth is, a calm mind doesn't mean you don't have problems. It means you're no longer letting those problems dictate your energy. You observe them, you face them, but you don't become them. And in that space of calm, of clarity, you start to choose again. You choose a different thought, a different feeling, different direction. And with every new choice, you signal to the universe, I am no longer the person I was yesterday. I am stepping into the life I was born to create. Asterisk, when you master your internal state, your external reality begins to reorganize. That's not a poetic idea. It's a neurological and energetic truth. Every moment of your life, your body is broadcasting a signal. That signal isn't just shaped by what you say or what you do. It's shaped by how you think and how you feel. These thoughts and emotions, when combined, create a state of being. And it's this state of being that's constantly interacting with the quantum field around you. A field filled with infinite potential waiting to collapse into your personal reality. But the field doesn't respond to your hopes or wishes. It responds to your energy. It mirrors back to you the frequency you are consistently emitting. So if your internal world is chaotic, conflicted, and rooted in fear or lack, your life will reflect that. It has no choice. Now, most people live there. Lives believing that their outer world needs to change in order for them to feel better on the inside. They say things like, when I get the job, then I'll feel confident. Or if this relationship finally works out, I'll feel loved. Or once I have enough money, then I'll feel secure.
Right.
But that's backward. That's living as a victim of reality, not as a creator of it. Because when you wait for something outside of you to shift your inner world, you've already surrendered your power. You've handed over the reins of your emotional state to circumstances you cannot control. As long as you do that, nothing will change. To transform your life, you must begin where all true change originates from within. You have to learn how to regulate your emotional state regardless of what's going on outside you. You have to train yourself to feel gratitude before the success arrives, to feel abundance before the wealth shows up, to feel love before the relationship appears. Because when you do, something powerful happens. Your body begins to believe that the future you're imagining is already happening now. And since the subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between a real experience and one vividly imagined with elevated emotion, it starts to rewire itself, as if the future you desire has already arrived. This is the essence of self-mastery. You become less reactive and more intentional. Instead of waking up and remembering who you were yesterday, the problems, the stress, the predictable emotions, you become a new version of yourself. You begin to anticipate a future rather than rehearse a past. And this shift, though subtle at first, begins to reprogram your brain and condition your body to a new personality. And when your personality changes, your personal reality has no choice but to change with it. But let's be honest, this isn't easy at first. We've spent years hardwiring our identity based on the environment around us. Every time we reacted to a problem with anger or fear, we reinforced neural pathways that shaped how we see the world and how we see ourselves. Our bodies became addicted to those emotional states. So even when we say we want change, part of us resists it, because familiarity feels safe even when it's painful. This is why true transformation requires practice. It's a daily choice. Every morning, when you wake up and your mind wants to revisit yesterday's stress, you interrupt it. You sit in meditation, you center yourself, you become aware of your thoughts. And instead of letting them pull you back into the past, you choose new ones. You feel the emotion of your desired future. You rehearse it. You embody it. And with every breath, every visualization, every elevated feeling, you begin to signal a new signature into the field. You start to become the cause of your future rather than the effect of your past. The moment you start feeling whole before, your healing has occurred. The moment you start feeling abundant before the money comes. The moment you start feeling love before you meet the partner, now you're no longer living in separation. You're no longer saying, I need this thing out there to feel good in here. You're saying, I've already become it within. And now the outer world must reflect that inner reality. This is not magic. This is alignment. This is the field mirroring the signal of coherence you've begun to emit over time. As you practice sustaining this internal state regardless of external conditions, the field begins to respond in profound ways. You'll notice synchronicities, people, opportunities, and events showing up in your life in ways you couldn't plan with your rational mind. You'll find yourself in the right place at the right time, drawn to ideas, collaborations, or paths you hadn't considered before. It's as if reality begins to rearrange itself to match the vision you've consistently broadcasted from within. And this isn't coincidence. This is you becoming a deliberate creator of your destiny. But remember, this transformation doesn't happen by force. It happens by surrender. Not the kind of surrender where you give up, but the kind where you let go of needing the outer world to validate your inner worth. You start to realize that the more you become the person you want to be internally, the less you chase and the more you attract. You move from effort to embodiment, from force to flow, from control to connection. This is where life begins to feel miraculous. Not because you've finally gotten everything you wanted, but because you've realized you already had the power all along. You've become the source of the love, the joy, the security, and the peace you were looking for. And because you no longer need the external world to give it to you, the external world begins to reflect it back effortlessly. So the next time life challenges you, and it will, ask yourself, am I reacting to the old self, or responding as the new one? Am I letting the outer world shape me, or am I using this moment to demonstrate mastery? Because every time you choose the latter, you signal to the universe that you're no longer waiting to be changed. You are the change. You're no longer waiting to be healed. You're healing. When that becomes your identity, reality can't help but catch up. Because a coherent internal state is the most magnetic force there is. It's not that you attract what you want, you attract what you are. So master your state of being, and the world around you will reorganize in ways your old self could never have imagined. Calmness is not weakness. It is not passivity. It is not retreat. Calmness is the purest form of power when it is born from conscious awareness. When you are calm, truly calm, not just on the surface, but from deep within, you are no longer at the mercy of the world. You become the observer rather than the reactor. You're no longer tossed around by the tides of emotion, opinion, or uncertainty. You have taken your seat at the center of yourself, and that is where true strength lives. It's where clarity emerges. It's where direction begins. Most people misunderstand calmness. They think it's doing nothing. They think it's silence born of submission. But the truth is, calmness is what happens when you have faced every storm inside you and chosen not to fight it, but to sit with it, to breathe through it, and to rise above it. Calmness comes from having mastered your internal world so thoroughly that the external world no longer has the power to disrupt your peace. That is not weakness. That is control. That is power distilled into stillness. We live in a world addicted to overstimulation. The constant notifications, the emotional triggers, the urgency of everything happening all at once keeps the nervous system in a low-grade panic all day long. And in that state, people lose themselves. They lose their center. They become reactive, impulsive, defensive. They argue to be right instead of pausing to understand. They chase after validation instead of recognizing their own worth. They make decisions from a place of lack instead of vision. They think noise is power, that aggression is strength, that domination is success. But none of that creates lasting transformation. All it does is reinforce the same limited identity over and over again. In the absence of calm, we run from discomfort. We avoid silence. We fill every moment with activity, trying to escape the very thing that could heal us. Our own presence. Because calmness demands we meet ourselves. Sometimes, that can be the scariest thing. But what if I told you that it's in that meeting, in that moment of stillness, that everything begins to shift? Because when you can sit with your own discomfort, your own emotions, your own unhealed past, and not run, not judge, not react, then, and only then, have you begun to reclaim your power. Calmness is born from coherence. When your brain and heart are in sync, when your nervous system is regulated, when your breath is steady, and your mind is no longer racing, become aware of the present moment in a way you've never experienced before. Stop identifying with every thought that enters your mind. You stop believing every story your ego tries to tell you. You start watching, witnessing, choosing. That's the moment you shift from being programmed to becoming the programmer, you see. You cannot change your life from a place of chaos. You cannot create a new reality when your energy is entangled in fear, anger, or guilt. These emotions are incoherent. They divide your focus. They lower your frequency. They reinforce the same chemical feedback loop that keeps your body stuck in the past. But when you practice calmness, you break that loop. You rise above the noise. You stop the program and write a new one. You train your body to feel peace without needing a reason. You teach your nervous system that safety does not come from the outside world. It comes from the choice to be still in that stillness. You begin to hear something deeper. Intuition, vision, purpose. These don't shout, they whisper. Your mind is loud, you'll miss them. You'll keep looking for answers out there when the real answers have always been in here. Calmness makes space for that inner guidance to rise. It opens the channel, it clears the fog. And suddenly, you know what to do. Not because someone told you, but because your soul remembered. When you become calm, people feel it. You walk into a room, and your energy speaks louder than your words. You don't need to prove anything because your presence says everything. You become a mirror to others. Your stillness reflects what they've been running from. And sometimes that will challenge people. They might project, react, or misunderstand you. But that's okay. Because when you are calm, you don't need everyone to agree with you. You are not here to be understood by those still lost in their own noise. You are here to lead by example. To show what's possible when you stop chasing and start being. And being is the hardest thing for most people. We've been taught to achieve, to hustle, to accumulate. But very few have been taught to be, to sit, to feel, to breathe, to listen. And yet it is in being that we find our greatest power, because in being there is no resistance. Where there is no resistance, energy flows. You move with the rhythm of life instead of fighting against it. You align with the field of infinite intelligence that knows more than your thinking mind ever could. Calmness allows you to respond instead of react. It gives you the ability to pause between stimulus and response and choose who you want to be. In that moment, that pause is the birthplace of personal evolution. It is the space in which the old self dies and the new self is born. It's where you stop recycling the past and start initiating the future. You become the one who decides how this story unfolds, not the one who waits for life to write it for you. This doesn't mean you won't face challenges. It doesn't mean you won't feel pain or loss or uncertainty. It means you'll face them differently. You'll face them with a steady breath and a steady heart. You'll face them with wisdom, not panic. With trust, not fear. You'll face them knowing that nothing outside of you can disturb the stillness you've cultivated within. And that stillness will become your foundation. It will hold you when the world shifts. It will guide you when your vision isn't clear. It will remind you that you are not what happens to you. You are how you choose to meet it. The most powerful people in this world are not those who speak the loudest, move the fastest, or dominate the most. They are the ones who remain rooted when everything else is shaking. Oh. They are the ones who know how to be still in the midst of chaos. And in that stillness, remember who they are. Because when you remember who you are, you no longer need to control the world. You trust the world to reflect the energy you carry. And the energy you carry is calm, focused, unwavering. It is the energy of someone who has returned home to themselves, and in doing so, found everything they were searching for. You are not your past. You are your potential. That may sound simple, but the truth held in those words can free you from an entire lifetime of limitation. Most people walk through life tethered to who they were, bound by memories they didn't choose, repeating emotions they never resolved, reacting to life through the lens of everything that happened to them. And so they wake up each day and unconsciously relive yesterday. Their body wakes up in the past. Their thoughts are filtered through the familiar emotions of guilt, shame, unworthiness, fear. They recall the same stories. They tell themselves the same narrative, and their brain and body fire in the same ways they always have. That person believes they are stuck, but what they are is memorized. Memorized by their past, chemically and neurologically. We must come to understand something fundamental. The body doesn't know the difference between an experience in the outer world and the emotion you produce from the memory of that experience in your inner world. If you've been holding on to a betrayal for 10 years, your body has been living in that betrayal every day. If you've carried a story of abandonment, your body has been producing the same chemicals of isolation and pain, reinforcing that state of being over and over again. And over time, your body becomes your mind. You no longer have to consciously think the thought. The emotion has become so familiar, so automatic, that you feel it before you even think. That's how a personality becomes stuck. Not because change is impossible, but because the body has been programmed to the past. But here's the power of awareness. The moment you realize that you are thinking the same thoughts, feeling the same emotions, reacting in the same ways, and expecting something different, to wake up. You become the observer of your inner world instead of the prisoner of it. And in that awareness, something new becomes possible. The choice to change. When you no longer identify with the past, when you stop saying things like, "This is just how I am," or "I've always been this way," you break the cycle of being. You begin to make space for a new you to emerge. You stop defining yourself by your history and begin to define yourself by your vision of the future, because what you rehearse, you become. And if you keep rehearsing the old self, those familiar thoughts, those memorized feelings, those predictable actions, then your future is just your past projected forward. But the moment you start to mentally and emotionally experience a new reality before it even exists in your outer world, your body begins to believe it's happening now, and this is the science of transformation. When you repeatedly experience the elevated emotions of your desired future, gratitude, inspiration, joy, freedom, You condition your body to a new state of being. You break the chemical addiction to the old emotions of the past. You free yourself from the survival states that have ruled you. And when the body is no longer anchored to those limiting emotions, it becomes liberated energy. That energy can now be directed into creating something new, because energy is attention. And where you place your attention is where you place your energy. The challenge, of course, is that your past is comfortable. Even when it's painful, it's familiar. The body craves what it knows. It will try to pull you back into the old identity. You'll wake up and feel that same heavy emotion and be tempted to say, "Here we go again." But in that moment, you have a choice. You can feel it, recognize it, and say, "That's not who I am anymore." You can stand in the discomfort of the unknown and choose a new way of being. That's when real change happens. Not when it's easy, but when it's hard. When your body wants to return to the past, and you anchor yourself in the future instead. This takes practice. It takes repetition. You can't just think the thought once. You can't just feel the feeling one time. You have to condition your body daily to the new experience. You have to become so familiar with your future self that you can feel it, speak it, walk it, breathe it. You begin to wire new neural circuits. You start to build a new map in your brain. And as those pathways become more developed, the old ones begin to wither. That's neuroplasticity. That's change on a biological level. And your life will begin to show you evidence. Small things at first. Shift in how people respond to you. A different opportunity that seems to show up at the right time. A sense of peace where there once was anxiety. These are signals from the field that your energy is shifted. You are no longer creating from your past. You're creating from your potential. But don't wait for the evidence before you believe it. Believe it, and the evidence will come. That's the essence of creation. You don't look to the outer world to determine your inner state. You master your inner world so completely that the outer world has no choice but to reflect that mastery. Because the quantum field responds to who you are being, not who you say you want to be. You are not your story. You are not your trauma. You're not your fears or your failures. Those are chapters in your journey, but they are not your identity. Your identity is who you choose to become right now. Every time you choose to think greater than how you feel, every time you elevate your emotion beyond your circumstances, every time you act in alignment with your future vision instead of your past wounds, you reclaim your power. You don't have to know how it will all unfold. You don't have to control every detail. Your job is not to manipulate the outcome, but to embody the energy of the outcome. To live from the feeling of the future as if it is happening now. Because when you do, you become a magnet for that future. You broadcast a new electromagnetic signature into the field. And that field, filled with infinite possibilities, begins to organize itself in ways that serve your new identity. You are not broken. You are becoming. You are not stuck. You are learning. You are not lost. You are awakening. Your potential is not ahead of you, waiting for the perfect moment. It is within you, waiting for your permission. When you realize that you are the cause of your experience, that you are the signal, that you are the creator, everything changes. Because you stop waiting for something outside of you to give you what only you can give yourself. You begin to live as if you already have it. And in doing so, you draw it to you. You are not here to relive your past. You are here to rewrite your future. The power is not in what happened. The power is in who you decide to become because of it. Let go of the old emotions. Release the old identity. Step into the unknown. That's where your true self lives. That's where your future is born. You are not your past. You are your potential. And your potential is infinite. Asterisk. Now it's your turn. Have you experienced the power of calmness in your life? Drop a comment below and share your story. What shifted for you when you silenced the noise and tapped into your inner world? If this message spoke to your soul, like, share, and subscribe for more deep, transformational wisdom. Remember, a calm mind isn't a luxury. It's your superpower.